The billionaire's redemption? Not on my watch. After waking up inside a toxic billionaire's regret romance novel, I decided to stop being the victim and start having some fun. It was the dead of winter, the kind of January chill that bites through bone. Fiona, the golden girl from Grant's past, stood by the edge of the estate's frozen lake, sobbing that I'd thrown her vintage diamond ring into the water. Grant, the brooding tech mogul and my so-called husband, loomed over me, his face a mask of cold fury. He demanded I dive in and find it myself. I didn't argue. Instead, I pulled out my phone and made a quick call to a local group of polar plunge enthusiasts. The first annual ice water diamond search is officially open. I announced to the crowd of burly, shirtless men who arrived 10 minutes later. $10,000 to whoever finds the rock. Fiona started wailing, claiming she'd rather jump off a bridge than deal with my disrespect. Grant's eyes turned bloodshot as he roared at me. If anything happens to her, I'll make sure you pay with your life. I didn't hesitate. I vaulted over the stone railing, grabbed Fiona in a dramatic embrace, and shrieked with theatrical passion, "You jump, I jump, baby!" Grant looked like he was having a stroke. A few nights later, Grant and Fiona were having their private time in the guest suite and demanded I'd be the one to change the linens and prep the room afterward. I sat in the armchair in the hallway, casually scrolling through TikTok and munching on a bag of flamin' hot Cheetos. When they finished, I offered a scathing review of their performance. I thought the Alpha CEO was supposed to be a marathon man. That was, what, 5 minutes? Barely a warm-up. Grant glared at me, his shirt half unbuttoned. "Get out." "Oh, and my bad," I added, tossing a Cheeto into my mouth. "I might have swapped your expensive cooling gel for some ghost pepper-infused heat rub." Are the crown jewels doing okay? For the next 2 days, I was sidelined by the world's worst period cramps. I stayed in bed, blissfully ignoring the world. Grant eventually stormed into my room, looking strangely frantic. "Chloe, you haven't started a single fight in 3 days. Are you trying to tell me you don't love me anymore?" I was dying of uterine warfare, and he was worried about his ego. Today, the pain finally ebbed, and my appetite returned with a vengeance. I headed downstairs, starving, only to be met by Grant charging through the front door with a small army of his associates in tow. He stopped dead when he saw me. His panicked expression instantly shifted to annoyance. "Ah, I knew you couldn't go 3 days without playing the martyr. You were just waiting for today, weren't you?" I blinked, genuinely confused. Grant sneered, accusing me of faking a life-threatening illness. "The housekeeper called me, saying you were on your deathbed. You timed it perfectly for Fiona's birthday dinner. I didn't even get to cut the cake because I was rushing back here." I looked past him toward the kitchen, where Fiona and our housekeeper were exchanging a knowing, subtle glance. I got it. This trashy novel really went all out. Even the staff was in on the let's frame the wife plot. Before I could say anything, Grant grabbed my wrist and yanked me toward the kitchen. "Chloe, you ruined Fiona's night. You're going to stay in here and cook a 5-course meal for everyone as an apology." Suddenly, I was very interested. "But Grant, I'm a terrible cook. I can barely tell the difference between parsley and hemlock. Are you sure you want me in charge of the stove?" Grant hesitated, his brow furrowing. Fiona stepped up then, her face a portrait of wounded innocence. "Chloe, if you don't want to cook for my friends, you don't have to lie. We all know you used to spend hours making Grant gourmet meals just to see him smile." Grant's gaze darkened with possessive nostalgia. I shrugged and strolled into the kitchen. Half an hour later, a dozen steaming plates of wild mushroom stir-fry were laid out. Grant looked almost satisfied, but he couldn't resist one last jab. "Chloe, you aren't invited to the table. Stay in the kitchen and think about what you've done." Fiona flashed me a triumphant, petty smirk as they sat down. I almost laughed. I wouldn't touch that food if someone paid me. I went back to the pantry, whipped up a bowl of instant ramen, and slurped it happily. 30 minutes later, the siren started. 2 ambulances came screaming up the driveway to haul away a dozen people who were currently hallucinating and dancing on the lawn. The housekeeper ran into the kitchen, hysterical. "Miss Carter, those mushrooms were toxic if not prepared correctly. You almost killed everyone." I held up 3 fingers. Grant demanded 10 dishes in 30 minutes. No help allowed. I met his deadline. He should be thrilled with that kind of efficiency. As he was being loaded into the ambulance, Grant actually managed to punch Fiona in the arm. "Get away from me, you giant chicken," he screamed. "Don't peck me." "No." I remembered then, Grant had a childhood trauma involving a mean rooster. He was terrified of anything with a beak. I recorded the whole thing on my phone, laughing until I cried. With the billionaire and his entourage in the hospital, I finally had some peace. That is until my best friend dragged me to an exclusive underground club to get over him. Chloe, are you really done with Grant? She asked, swirling her martini. I nodded, absently bored. The girls swapped looks of pure disbelief. Liar, one of them scoffed. If you were really over him, you would have ordered an escort to your lap by now. You're just pretending to be strong while your heart is breaking. I was speechless. What kind of logic was that? To forget one man, I had to pay for another. I'd rather stay home and play Elden Ring. Besides, why would I pay a guy to pretend to like me? But a second later, I did a literal spit take. Caleb. At the sound of my voice, one of the hosts who had been trying to dodge a clingy customer spun around. His handsome, brooding face lit up instantly. Chloe. We ran toward each other like long-lost lovers in a cheesy movie and slammed into a hug. Oh my God, it's actually you. I reached into my purse, pulled out Grant's black card, and slammed it onto the manager's tray. Whatever the buyout is, charge it. This man is coming with me. My friends sat frozen, their drinks spilling onto the floor. Once Caleb and I were safe back at the villa, we finally caught our breath. How are my parents? I asked. Before the accident, I remembered being hit by a car. Caleb didn't sugarcoat it. They're a wreck, Chloe. He explained that after the crash, I wasn't technically dead, but I had fallen into a deep coma. I was in the ICU, basically a vegetable. I felt a surge of desperation. Every second in this world felt like a waste. Wait, how did you get here? Were you hit by a car too? Caleb grabbed my hands to calm me down. Before he could speak, a cold, mechanical voice echoed through the room. I brought him here. I jumped. The house is haunted. The voice turned indignant. I am your system. You transmigrated so fast you left me behind. Oops. I've always been a bit impulsive. The system explained that since Caleb had been at the accident site and shared a deep childhood friend bond with me, it was able to latch onto his frequency and bring him along. My eyes watered. I threw my arms around him. You're the best, Caleb. I knew you wouldn't leave me. He hugged me back. Hey, watch the attitude. Show some respect to your savior. Call me daddy. The system interrupted. To go back, you must follow the plot. You have to endure the abuse until your character's heart is completely broken. Only then can you die and return. Just as the words left the system's mouth, the bedroom door was kicked open. My legs were currently wrapped around Caleb's waist. Grant stood there, his face contorted with rage. Chloe, what the hell is this? The system made a static noise and went offline. I scrambled off Caleb. Grant's fists were clenched, his entire body shaking with fury. He stepped toward me. This is a new low, even for you, Chloe. You hired a stripper just to make me jealous? Don't make me laugh. But the man's eyes were bloodshot. He looked like he was about to lose his mind. I wanted to snap back, but the system shrieked in my ear. Do you want to go home or not? Stick to the script. I shut my mouth. My silence seemed to cool Grant's temper slightly. Fiona walked in behind him. Seeing Grant's reaction, her eyes flashed with spite. Chloe, you must have heard about the $10 million necklace Grant bought me at the auction tonight. Is that why you're doing this? Oh, that happened. I've been too busy being happy about Caleb. Don't worry, Fiona said with a saintly smile. Grant didn't mean anything by it. He just felt bad for you, since you were the reason I ended up in the hospital. Grant, you should stay here with her. She's clearly unstable. Usually, this would trigger Grant to insult me and leave with her, leaving the wife in tears. But today he didn't move. Fine, Grant said, his voice low. I'll have the driver take you home, Fiona. He then turned a lethal gaze toward Caleb. As for you, get out. Now. Fiona's jaw dropped. The system sounded like it was having a nervous breakdown. I lowered my head, forcing my voice to tremble. Grant, I'm so sorry. I wasn't, obviously. As soon as his back was turned, I sneaked Caleb back into the house. In this world, his backstory was a nightmare. Gambling addict father, sick mother, starving siblings, the whole tragic package. The villa had 4 floors and 20 rooms. Hiding one guy would be easy. Everything was quiet for a few days until Grant dragged me to a high society gala. Halfway through the night, Fiona bribed a waiter to lead me into a private lounge. The second I walked in, I saw her. Her clothes were torn, and she was surrounded by a group of sketchy-looking men. She had bruises on her arms and was sobbing pathetically. Before I could back out, Grant burst in right behind me. The men panicked, dropping their phones on the floor. The fire in the choice eye looked down. Of course, the phones were filled with fresh photos and videos of the scene. Mr. Sterling, please. It was Chloe Carter. She paid us to assault Miss Vance. She wanted to ruin her, one of the men yelled. Fiona clutched her chest, wailing. I rolled my eyes, so hard hurt. These guys were terrible actors. Where was the security footage? Where were the bank transfers? Does anyone in this world have a brain? The system chirped in my ear. Perfect opportunity. If the hero misunderstands and punishes you, the progress bar will skyrocket. I wanted to scream, but I had to play along. Grant looked at me with pure loathing. Chloe, I knew you were petty, but I never thought you were evil. He scooped Fiona up and stormed out. I tried to follow, but the group of men blocked my path. Not so fast, Mrs. Sterling, they sneered, picking up their phones. We were paid for a job, and we haven't finished a real task yet. My blood ran cold. I started to shake. Get back. They didn't listen. They closed in. Reading about this stuff in a novel is one thing, but standing there, facing real violence, the fear is paralyzing. Chloe, Caleb smashed through the door just as they grabbed my arms. I was already being shoved down, my dress tearing. Caleb had lost it. He swung a champagne bottle he grabbed from the hall, shattering it over the first guy's head. I fought back too, sinking my teeth into the wrist of the man holding me. When the room finally fell silent, leaving nothing but broken glass and bloodstains, I collapsed into Caleb's arms, sobbing. Caleb, I want to go home. I wanted my parents. I wanted a world where things made sense. The tough girl act I'd been putting on shattered. Caleb held me tight, his voice thick with suppressed rage. I'm getting you home, Chloe. I promise. But the truth was, we had no idea how. Caleb spent the next few days awake, eyes red from searching for any clue, any glitch in this world's logic. The system remained adamant. Follow the plot, or stay forever. I was a mess. When Grant returned to the villa, I couldn't stand to look at him. I made an excuse to go buy a cake. I just needed to be away from him and Fiona. But when I drove back toward the estate, I saw it. The sky was orange. The villa was engulfed in flames. The cake box hit the pavement. I ran toward the house, my legs feeling like jelly. The system screamed with excitement. This is it. The climactic fire scene. Go, go, go. It told me the script. I had to rush in and save Grant. I'd be gravely injured. We'd both pass out, and Fiona would swoop in to take the credit. Grant, thinking I had done nothing, would leave me to die in a different hospital, leading to my final heartbreak. Then you can leave, the system cheered. I didn't feel happy. But Caleb is in there. The system paused. If he dies in the fire, he'll probably just wake up back home too, right? I stumbled through the smoke. I tripped over something heavy. It was Grant. A heavy oak wardrobe had fallen across his legs. He looked up, his eyes widening as he saw me through the haze. Chloe, you came for me. The system was buzzing. Do it. Suffer for him. Go home. I looked at Grant. Then I stepped right over his head and ran upstairs. Sorry, Grant. You aren't worth a single hair on Caleb's head. Caleb had been asleep and woke up disoriented from the smoke. I found him just in time. We grabbed each other's hands and bolted back down the stairs. We passed Grant again. When he saw me dragging Caleb out, his face shifted from shock to a soul-crushing despair. Caleb and I shared a look. In total sync, we let go of each other and put every ounce of strength we had into lifting that damn wardrobe off Grant. Why did rich people buy solid oak? I hate the wealthy. Suddenly, a massive framed oil painting tore loose from the wall above us. Caleb didn't even have time to yell. He just shoved me out of the way. The heavy silver frame slammed into his shoulder. I heard a sickening pop as his arm went limp. Grant scrambled out, his expression unreadable. He was limping, but he grabbed Caleb's good arm and threw it over his shoulder. Get out. Now. The three of us collapsed onto the lawn, just as the roof began to groan. Grant, either from the smoke or the sheer emotional toll, passed out first. The system wailed. The plot. My beautiful plot. Everything is ruined. At the hospital, Caleb and I were in one wing. Fiona had arrived and whisked Grant away to the private VIP suite. Caleb's shoulder was dislocated, not broken, but he had a nasty burn on his back that would take weeks to heal. I sat by his bed, feeding him soup and trying to ignore the system's constant nagging. You're an idiot, the system muttered. You had the perfect exit strategy and you blew it for a guy who was going to be fine anyway. I finally snapped. And what if he wasn't fine? What if he died here and stayed dead? I'm not gambling with his life. The system went silent. I stepped out of Caleb's room to get some air and passed the door to Grant's suite. I heard Fiona's voice, thick with fake tears. Grant, you terrified me. Thank God I was able to get you out in time. There was a long silence. Grant's voice sounded hollow. You saved me. Of course, she whispered. I peeked through the crack in the door. She was pulling up her sleeve to show a series of blisters and burns, likely self-inflicted or from something else entirely. You were unconscious. You probably don't remember. I almost felt bad for her. Even the system was confused. She doesn't realize Grant was awake when you lifted the wardrobe. Grant let out a cold, sharp laugh. He looked at Fiona with a level of disappointment I'd never seen. Fiona, Why are you lying? Fiona froze. I'm not. Grant reached into his bedside table and pulled out a stack of papers. He threw them at her. The system scanned them immediately. They were surveillance stills from the gala. How many times have you lied to me this year? Grant asked, his voice cold as ice. And how many times did you set Chloe up? I walked away quietly. I didn't care if they made up or tore each other apart. I didn't visit Grant once during our stay, but he eventually found me. He showed up at the door of Caleb's room, just as Caleb was telling me a stupid joke. I was laughing so hard I was about to hit him, but I caught Grant's reflection in the window. He stood there for a long time, watching us. He looked lost. Chloe, he said finally, can we talk? Alone. I followed him to a quiet balcony. He started with an apology. He admitted he'd been wrong about everything. I'm not even mad that you hid him in the house, Grant said, his voice trembling. He saved you at that gala. I get why you saved him in the fire. It was a debt. He looked at me with desperate hope. I looked into him. He's just an escort who needs money. I'll pay off his debts, Chloe. Whatever it takes. Just don't see him again. Let's start over. Fiona is gone for good. I looked at him and felt nothing but pity. The truth, we can't go back, Grant, I said, pulling my hand away from his. Why? He demanded, his voice rising. You've known this guy for a week. I don't believe you've fallen for him that fast. The system started buzzing again. This is it. The regretful CEO arc. He's going to chase you now. Just play along for 10 more chapters. No, I said, both to the system and to Grant. Grant, I could never love you, because I'm not Chloe Carter. The system made it sound like a dying hard drive. I looked Grant in the eye and told him everything. The accident, the transmigration, the fact that the woman who loved him was gone. Maybe she's dead. Maybe she's somewhere else, I said. But you lost her a long time ago. If she were here, she'd be fighting to get back to the people who actually cared about her, just like I am. Grant stood there, looking like a man who had just seen a ghost. He kept muttering, impossible. Then, it makes sense. You're so different. I left him there. He needed time to process that his golden girl was gone and the woman he'd been tormenting didn't even belong to his world. Back in the room, the system had given up on yelling. If you don't cooperate, you might never go home, it sighed. I shrugged. Then I'll live. I'll eat. I'll sleep. I'll work. I'm not going to spend my life in a tragic montage. The system was quiet for a long time. I asked it, hey, can you at least send a message to my world? I have no obligation to transmit data, it replied. So you can do it. I smirked. After Caleb was discharged, we moved out. We rented a tiny one-bedroom apartment in a part of the city Grant would never visit. We got normal jobs, 9 to 5 grind with occasional overtime. I was no longer a billionaire's wife. I was a marketing assistant, and I loved it. One day, Caleb came home looking strange. Grant Sterling, he paid off my family's debts in this world, and he had my father dealt with, so he won't gamble again. I paused while chopping vegetables. I unblocked Grant's number and sent 2 words, thank you. He never replied. I didn't expect him to. A month later, we got our first real paychecks. We decided to celebrate at a nice bistro. During dinner, the waiter brought over a massive bouquet of red roses. Caleb took them, his face turning bright red. He started rambling, clearly having forgotten whatever speech he'd prepared. He looked adorable. I laughed, and he finally smiled. I've thought about this 100 times, he said. In our world, I was going to do it under that big oak tree at your parents' house. Or maybe at our high school reunion. His expression flickered with pain. I was actually going to do it on your birthday, the day of the accident. I froze. I hadn't realized he'd been that close to proposing. Caleb looked around the small bistro. I never thought I'd be doing this in a fictional universe. It's insane. But Chloe, will you be my girlfriend? For real. I didn't just say yes. I cried. Thank you for finding me, I whispered. Thank you for coming here. We walked out of the restaurant, hand in hand, feeling like we finally had a future. Then, a car roared onto the sidewalk. Time slowed down. I saw Fiona behind the wheel, her face a mask of jagged, unhinged fury. She looked terrible, haggard, broken, and desperate. Chloe, I heard Grant's voice. He was driving his own car, swerving to try and ram Fiona off the road. But he was too far away. My only instinct was to push Caleb out of the way. But he was doing the same. Our arms locked in the air as we both tried to be the martyr. Neither of us moved. White light blinded me. I hit the ground, and for a second, it felt exactly like the day of the crash. I felt a single tear fall. The system's voice returned, but this time it sounded excited. Congratulations, host. You're going home. Then, everything went black. I opened my eyes to a white ceiling and the steady beep 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 of a heart monitor. She's awake, a nurse cried out. The Carter girl is awake. My parents rushed in. They looked like they'd aged 10 years. They were sobbing, and I was grinning like a fool. Mom, Dad, where's Caleb? I was terrified of the answer, but then his face appeared right next to theirs. I'm here, Chloe, he whispered. I broke down, sobbing in their arms. Life went back to normal. Caleb and I stayed together, and our parents acted as if his disappearance during my coma was just a weird coincidence. They didn't ask questions. They were just happy we were back. Sometimes I'd space out, wondering if that other world was even real. Until one day, I got a call. Miss Carter, you have a registered letter. Please come down and sign for it. The voice sounded familiar. Like the system? I went to the lobby and found a plain, white envelope in my mailbox. No stump, no return address. Just, to Chloe from Chloe. I opened it. The paper was blank, but a soft, steady woman's voice whispered in my ear. Chloe, it's the other you. I think you know who I am. I wasn't gone while you were in my body. I was watching. After you left, I woke up. I took over that little apartment you and Caleb rented. I have a job. I'm happy. I left Grant a long time ago. Thank you, Chloe. I stood there for a long time, smiling at the sun. Caleb walked up behind me. Hey, what are you grinning at? I tucked the blank paper into my bag. Just a message from an old friend. She's doing great. I looked at the sky and whispered a silent thank you to the system. It actually did it. Let's go home, Caleb said. Yeah, I replied. Let's go home. Story complete.